full year of Destiny under many players' belts, Guardians have been growing weary of many of the game's monotonous loot grinding and repetitive gameplay. Bungie has heard these woes, and their answer is the Taken King.
Is it?
Launching just over 1 year of the game's initial release date, the Taken King breathes new life into the stagnant waters that Guardians have been treading through since the House of Wolves expansion. The previous DLC content for Destiny did add some entertaining new content in the form of Crota's End, New Strikes, Trials of Osiris, and the Prison of Elders, but its story content lacked considerably, and even the ongoing endgame quickly grew stale for many players. The Taken King attempts to improve upon the shortcomings of all that came before it, and for the most part, it does just that. Before diving into the new content, it's important to point out that many of the game's improvements stem from the Destiny 2.0 update, which was free for players across all platforms. In this update, the light level system experienced a complete overhaul. Light is now a separate entity from your Guardian's level, and is now an average of your combined attack and defense stats. The better armor and weapons you use, the higher your light rating becomes, strengthening your Guardian and opening up new and challenging activities. In addition to this most obvious change, all the weapons and armor obtained in the first year of Destiny have been rebalanced to account for the new gear in the Taken King. Sadly, this gear will no longer be much use against new foes, as the light they provide is minimal when compared to the new weapons and armor you'll find through drops and rewards. The game now also features quests as a way to reinforce motives and clearly outline objectives. This does a lot to help with Destiny's lack of plot direction and makes completing missions much more satisfying. Quests as well as bounties are now trackable from the Quests tab in the menu, as well as directly from your Ghost while out in the field. This is very convenient and it helps the action going, as opposed to the old method of searching for objectives in the menu. The only downside to quests is the fact that after almost every single mission, the player must return to the tower and speak to the character they received it from in order to gain rewards. It is sometimes nice to get to return to the safety of the tower to regroup and organize your inventory, especially after a hectic mission, but it can be very tedious to have to constantly sit through loading zones. Among the other changes are the ability to skip cutscenes, an improved reward system for strikes, expanded vault storage, and Peter Dinklage's replacement, Nolan North, as the voice of Ghost.
We're in this together now.
Now that all that's out of the way, let's gear up and take on the Taken. For veteran Guardians, the beginning of the Taken King might be a bit of a slog, as once you touch down in the tower, you're bombarded with quest after quest telling you to go to this person or talk to that person in order to collect special rewards for a job well done in year one. The rewards are great and definitely appreciated, but it would have been nice to just have them appear in my vault instead of having to take a forced tour of the tower and spend an extra 10 minutes collecting them all. One very special item players can collect during this trek is the Spark of Light, which allows the player to ascend any Guardian to level 25 instantly. This is great for seasoned players who want to create a new Guardian, but don't want to go through the whole main game story again. New players, however, may want to save this item for later, after they've cleared the main game with at least one character, since ascending a character unlocks everything in the game all at once, which is sure to overwhelm anyone new to Destiny. Perhaps the way the Taken King improves upon Destiny most drastically is in the delivery of its narrative. The short version of what's going on here story-wise is that Oryx, the King of the Hive, is seeking to avenge the death of his son Crota at the hands of the Guardians by hunting them down with an army of tortured minions made up of every antagonistic alien race in the solar system, and it's your job to stop it. The scene this expansion opens with is unlike any the game has seen before. An awoken war fleet storms the Taken King's battalion in a massive space battle that could hold its own against any Star Wars dogfight. The plot point with the Awoken and their queen did leave me a bit confused as to what exactly she did and why, considering she was apparently following some plan. But before I could ponder it too long, I was treated to another beautifully pre-rendered scene between the Guardians of the Vanguard. These characters in particular play a much bigger role than ever before, as they are finally given real personalities, It was great to see Commander Zavala arguing with Ikora about their next move, and a real joy to watch the banter between Cayde and Eris Morn.
Eris, get your rock off my map.
The Hunter Vanguard Cayde certainly takes center stage as far as the story goes, and Nathan Fillion does a great job of bringing this character to life. On almost every mission, we're joined by Cayde's snarky comments and irreverent jibes toward his fellow Vanguard members, and the extra dimension to his character feels genuine, almost making me regret choosing the Titan class over a Hunter.
Intel beacons are Ikora's favorite, by the way. Never met a woman who appreciated ambient temperature and energy readings as much as she does.
All the focus on Cayde, however, does take away from the rest of the cast, and even Cayde's own sarcasm can get old after a while.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm leaving.
All the other characters are given more depth than they had before, but just barely. It really says something when the most fleshed out character next to Cayde is Eris Morn.
Fingertips on the surface of my mind.
Yes. Thank you for your input, Eris.
As far as the Taken King's playable campaign goes, it starts and finishes extremely strong, with a few peaks and valleys in between. The first story mission is by far the best in the entirety of Destiny. We're sent to Phobos, one of the moons orbiting Mars, to scout out what's been happening with our old enemy, the Cabal, and we're met with much more than we bargained for. The Cabal are being ravaged and enslaved by Oryx, and I actually found myself feeling sorry for these guys that I had up until now been killing without a second thought. There are more than a few moments during this mission where I actually felt scared. There's a great atmosphere of unknown danger, and the music and sound design do wonders to heighten it. This mission really shows how a cinematic delivery can impact a player's engagement and overall enjoyment, something that Destiny had sorely been lacking before. Sadly though, Bungie pulls out all the stops for their initial delivery and then slowly starts to push them back in. The mid-story missions are more or less what we've come to expect from Destiny's explore, inspect, fight, go back to the tower mission structure. This isn't a bad model, but none of the missions are as well designed as the first, and they don't showcase those cinematic moments that initially sucked me in. There is one mission, however, when Eris sends you into the Crota's End raid area and introduces a whole new stealth mechanic. During most of this mission, we must sneak past enemies using a cloaking device in the third person. This really shakes things up and offers a very tense and entertaining change of pace. It also made me realize how much fun Destiny would be with a third-person camera option, something I hope we see a lot more of in the future. The brand new subclasses that players can find through the story missions are the best yet, and feature immensely fun-to-use super abilities. Whether you're a Titan Sunbreaker hurling fiery hammers to smite foes, a Warlock Stormcaller with command over tendrils of electric fury, or a Hunter Nightstalker mastering the void with a dark and deadly bow, you'll love charging up your new supers and laying waste to all who oppose you. When we finally take on Oryx within the bowels of the Dreadnought, the battle is fairly easy but incredibly epic. It's a two-part fight that starts off just like any, but then presents a challenge of searching for your target, attacking at the right time, and then getting the hell out of the way. Though repetitive, and honestly not very difficult, it was still intense and a lot of fun. Though not every story mission presents a lot of memorable moments, each one is well narrated and keeps the player engaged in the Taken King story. I constantly found myself disinterested with the main campaign's narrative, but here I had motives, context, and desire to see things through to the end. We even get to explore all new areas of planets we thought we were completely familiar with. One of my favorite moments was scaling a huge rundown structure in the Cosmodrome and looking down at the Earth below me.
Don't look down.
When the story's over, the game opens up more than it ever has before. There are 4 new excellent strikes to undertake with a fire team of 3 players. These strikes showcase a much more intuitive design than any that came before, and there are many non-combat moments that test more than just your Guardian's trigger finger. The bosses of these strikes present a fairly underwhelming aesthetic design, but taking them down requires interesting and unique mechanics, which is a breath of fresh air after sinking bullet after bullet into old strike bosses like Fogoth or Valis Ta'aruk. They've even reimagined some of the older strikes, which now feature Taken segments. making them all the more enjoyable, especially after having run through their original versions hundreds of times. This is especially nice when embarking on strike playlists, which now have a new heroic option for an extra challenge. Having so many new strikes and new segments for old ones creates a much higher probability of coming across something new while playing. That is, of course, until you've gone through them 100 times. To extend the playtime even further, The Taken King offers even more story-driven missions to complete after the main narrative has concluded. Vanguard members will give out specific directives across every planet to address the growing threat of the Taken. These are far more challenging than the main missions, and through them, we get to visit some of the coolest areas in the game. One even takes us through the Vault of Glass, an area that was previously only accessible through raid play. The way this expansion allows players to experience the raid areas in Crota's End and the Vault of Glass through story missions is a very nice addition. These are some of the coolest places in the game, but until now, they could only be experienced by invite-only fire teams. This is a nice consideration to those who may not be interested in or able to play raids. Patrolling the Dreadnought also offers some great post-game activities. Unlike patrols on other planets, your Guardian will be placing patrol beacons in addition to receiving them. Our buddy Cade guides us through each of the new patrol activities on the Dreadnought in a mission that looks quite boring on paper, but turns out to be a very enjoyable outing.
You know, Zavala gets all cranky if you have more important things to do than plant beacons. Not a problem today.
While patrolling the Dreadnought, players can come across the Court of Oryx. This is Bungie's response to the mixed reviews their public events have gotten, and it allows players to place runes that they find as rewards or random drops into statues that then ignite a dark portal for powerful enemies to walk through. These foes must be defeated in unique ways that utilize the environment, specific damage types, and even using their own behaviors against them. It was tons of fun storming this small battlefield with 8 other Guardians in some of the most hectic and destructive mayhem I've experienced in the game. The only downside so far is that the rewards from completing these events are slim to none unless you're the player that activated them. The rewards and loot system in general has been altered throughout the game. I've been very pleased to see engrams and other loot drop far more frequently than it ever has before. The quality of loot isn't bad either, and everything is upgradable through the new infusion system, which allows you to increase the stats of any piece of gear through consuming another of equal or higher level. This is a much more streamlined upgrade method than the endless hunt for incredibly rare materials we were faced with in Year 1. A new type of gear has been added in the form of artifacts. These are equipable upon reaching level 40 and provide various stat bonuses along with added defense. I have yet to find any artifacts that truly feel like an asset to my Guardian, as most of them simply provide small bumps in strength or discipline. I'm sure there are some really great ones out there, but for me, the only real reason for equipping them is to increase my light level. Perhaps one of the most talked about features of the Taken King before its launch has been the inclusion of equipable swords. While they may not be as powerful as the temporary swords dropped by the Blades of Crota, these items are deadly and tons of fun to use. Fans have been asking for this since the game first came out, and I'm pleased to say they got what they asked for. It does take a bit of work to obtain one of these swords, as the quest to craft one includes searching for many hard-to-find materials hidden in chests across the Dreadnought. But it ends up being worth it when you can bust one out and slice your way to victory. As far as the new PvP modes go, I'd say they are some of the best the game offers now. Rift mode is more or less capture the flag, with players rushing to grab a spark and then racing it back to their base in order to instantly score a large amount of points. This switches things up for the Crucible, which has largely been just a bunch of different ways to play team deathmatches. Now, players have more incentive to defend their teammates as they carry the spark rather than just kill the other team for points. It's a nice shift in focus when playing with a team that puts priority on spark running. The other new mode is Mayhem, which does resort back to the team deathmatch style, but in a whole new way. In this mode, everyone's super is charged incredibly fast, and all points earned are multiplied by 10. With the focus centered on using supers to destroy your opponents, matches become incredibly hectic, and even more so when utilizing the new devastating subclasses. Though the vast majority of players will be using their new super abilities, there is still validity in choosing one of the older subclasses. There's nothing more exhilarating than popping a Ward of Dawn when you're stuck between a Sunbreaker and a Stormcaller while a Voidwalker ally throws down the hurt. And of course, there's the raid. King's Fall became playable 3 days after The Taken King was released, and it sees a fire team of 6 Guardians venturing through the Dreadnought to confront Oryx for the last time and end his reign once and for all. But good luck getting to him. This raid is by far the most challenging raid in Destiny, and not just because it's new. Perhaps more so than Vault or Crota, King's Fall requires constant team coordination in each of its areas. Though I unfortunately can't say I've bested Oryx quite yet, I've experienced a good portion of King's Fall, and it's full of trial and error based puzzles and even some platforming segments. Those I came across were all quite difficult to figure out, as timing is everything. But once the code was cracked, my fire team had little trouble surmounting the challenge. One section in particular involved strategic timing and placement, with Guardians swapping shields at just the right time while others fought off enemies in order to activate glyphs to unlock the passage out. Your team eventually settles into a pattern that flows seamlessly once everyone figures out how it works. Overall, it feels very well designed and utilizes everyone in the fire team to accomplish. I can really appreciate all the thought that went into the segments I've seen so far in King's Fall, but only after taking a break from overshooting my jumps across Hive ships and getting destroyed by Knights. Though I have a lot of good things to say about Destiny in its current state, I won't ignore the controversy surrounding it. When it launched last year, Destiny was priced at $60. Today, you can buy the game with The Taken King and the previous 2 expansions for the same price. Something that longtime players have now spent a total of $135 on. A lot of people will say that Year 1 Destiny was just a really expensive beta for a game that only now knows what it wants to be. There's some validity to those claims, especially where money is concerned. But for me, I can't help but feel a sense of pride being one of the original Guardians. It's empowering to be able to say I was there when everything was being experienced for the first time. To have reached light level 34 before the 2.0 update, to have destroyed foes with Gjallarhorn at the height of its damage levels. And although those days are done, it's the fond memories and fun experiences I had that made buying the original game worth it for me back then, and The Taken King worth buying now. Paul Tassi of Forbes Tech made a good point in a recent article, stating that after a decade of playing Call of Duty, what The Taken King has added to Destiny seems more significant than the sum of all the Call of Duty changes in the past few years. Activision has found a great partner with Bungie, and although the Call of Duty series will continue indefinitely, they are proving to us with The Taken King that they are not incapable of creating a unique and engaging first-person shooter experience. The Taken King is not going to be worth $40 by itself for everyone, but it will end up being worth it for devoted Guardians who will enjoy a whole new year of memories and accomplishments. It's an experience that no one who loves Destiny should miss.
For your destiny. Ha ha ha!